Hi, everyone, and welcome to the ARC National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability webinar. My name is Catherine Walker. I'm today's facilitator. And before we begin our presentation, I'd like to go over a few ground rules, especially for those of you new to WebEx. Because there are so many of you, all participants are in listen-only mode. At any time during the presentation, if you need help, you can post a question in the chat box on the side of your screen or to the Q&A section. We'll be happy to help you. At the end of the session, there will be a time for questions. You can either post your question in the Q&A section or in the chat box. If you want your question to stay private, type private before your question and I won't say your name. You can also email questions to nccjdinfo@thearc.org. If we don't get to your question during the presentation, we'll follow up with you afterwards. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website. We'll send you an email letting you know when it's available. During the presentation, you'll be asked to answer a few questions. These questions help us document your involvement for our funders, so please participate. We have one final request. You'll receive a session evaluation after the webinar. Please take 5 minutes to complete and send that to us. This webinar is funded by the United States Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance, and we appreciate your participation. During today's presentation, we will have 4 polls. I believe Chris, one of our presenters, has a prize today for one lucky person who participates in the polls. We'll do a drawing from everyone who answers all 4 poll questions, so be sure to participate. The webinar today is the 10th of NCCJD's monthly webinars and features Chris Snell, Director of Specialized Employment Service at Class, Inc., and Dr. Paul Van Almkirk, Clinical and Organizational Consultant to the SES program. Please welcome Mr. Snell and Dr. Van Almkirk.
Thank you, Catherine. Hoping everyone can see us okay. We can't see us, so we'll get started. So I'm Chris Snell. This is Dr. Van Almkirk. Just to give some history of the agency that our program is located in, we're a member of the CLASS program in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And it's an agency that supports over 400 individuals from 40 communities in Massachusetts. And if anyone would like additional information, you can certainly log on to the website on this slide, classinc.org. Our program is located in an old mill building in Lawrence, Mass. This was a major wool processing area until the 1950s, so we have a lot of space in our building. The environment of our program consists of 7 home bases, which are splitting up and clustering the individuals. The majority of the home bases are connected, and then we have a home base connected to our warehouse facilities, as well as an offshoot home base which we utilize as our intake home base. So any new individuals that come into our program, we have located in this home base where we can then assess where they'll need to transition to after that period of time where they come into the program. We populate each home base based on the needs of each individual, what level of supervision they will require, their compatibility with other individuals, as well as their vocational skills. Dr. Van Almkirk and myself sit down with the team every 6 months and identify each individual, the successes and the challenges that they've had over the last few months to see if they need to move to a different room, if there's a need for them to stay in that room. We will address that every 6 months. The program has on-site employment opportunities in which in our facility we have opportunities for shipping and handling employment, collating. Right now, the majority of individuals are working on a healthcare packet to put together, collating work, as well as assembling boxes. We also have a job that has within the last year really expanded. We have fabric looms in which we're using recycled videotape that allows for individuals really to get some experience on a fabric loom, and over 20 individuals are currently working on that job. Also, some in-house opportunities that really have some competitive wage opportunities are maintenance around the building, doing some porter jobs, doing some internal mail delivery within programs, as well as the administrative areas of the building, some landscaping opportunities around the outside of the property, as well as doing cleanup of our parking garages. These give us an opportunity to really kind of assess that person's abilities and needs without stepping outside of our site. We also have warehouse material handling employment opportunities, loading and unloading our trucks of all these materials that we're using for these jobs. Our off-site opportunities include a local lumber yard. This is an opportunity that's been about 15 years.
Yes, 12, 15 years.
It's a large lumber yard in the area of our building, and we have between 4 and 6 individuals that will go daily with staff to this site. They clean bathrooms, do janitorial work, clean up around the exterior of the lumber yard as well. It's also in an environment that allows for it to be a safe and comfortable environment for the staff to, again, be able to assess their needs and their skill bases. There's also recently, within the last 2 weeks, we've been working at a local warehouse, doing some assembling of products, and this has been a nice opportunity for people that might not be able to work at that lumberyard yet to go out to this warehouse and be able to assess their skills there as well. So I'll turn it back over to Catherine for the first poll question.
All right, everybody. The poll should be open, and the question is, what is the current number of sex offenders in the United States? And remember, if you answer all 4 of these, you're in a drawing for a prize, so you guys should participate. I wish I could take the poll.
Best practices. We'll jump in here. Nope. All right. Can't see. Can we see her? No.
All right, I'm going to pass it back over to you guys.
I want to go back and, ready? I wanted to make a comment. Chris brought up and talked about being located in Lawrence, Mass. And for those out there who are history majors or have some interest in history, Lawrence is significant because it's where the Bread and Roses strike was in 1912. And Class's building, as Chris said, is an old mill building, I think with about 250,000 square feet. And what you should know is that there's other tenants within the building. So when Chris was describing some of the in-house opportunities for the individuals, they're throughout the whole building here. The other thing I wanted to pick up on was the lumber yard is located about 7-8 miles from here, so it's close by. When he's preparing for today and looking at best practices going through our manual, one of the things that I couldn't pass on was realizing that we've moved 3 times in terms of this program from when it first started in 1988. And the program right now is located in the basement of the building, fairly large square footage. But what was interesting to me on a personal level was when I first started in the business when I was 20 years old, as a co-op student from Northeastern at Fernal State School, which I think most people know was the first state school for people with intellectual disabilities in the country. I started in a basement program as a direct worker in a flow workshop. And so 40 plus years later, I'm still in the basement, but I still really enjoy my job. I like this work. Go home at the end of the day, I'm tired, but it's good, honest work. And I think I say this and throw this out front, because one of the things that we have incorporated and really is embedded within the best practices manual It is more than just what our programmatic components or parts of our program are all about. It really is, and it goes beyond philosophy. It's really a statement that commitment to working with population that's duly diagnosed, multi-diagnosed, or forensically involved is not something that you do on a whim. It's something that takes tremendous commitment and time. You need to stick with it. People can get easily frustrated working with this population. They can get scared. They can feel that progress is just slow, so patience is critical. Specific in terms of looking at the best practices manual, what it really is an operating manual. What we did over the years, we went from different systems and different models. We started out really with a pretty traditional point level system, accrual system, and that was the basic sort of part of our model. But over the years, we've added lots of different therapies, different types of supports for individuals. And what we come to in terms of the best practices model, we even take time to explain to staff who are working the program and the individuals, if they're interested, that to do this work, we have to make sure that we cover a couple areas. To actually do the clinical support and the employment training, if we're not solid in terms of politically, having backing across the board from not only the agency itself and the hierarchy here, but from the funding sources, from the community, we're not going to be able to do the clinical piece. Economics is another area. If you're going to start this program, these types of program, work with these kind of programs, please be realistic about what you can and can't do. You have to have the bucks to be able to do this kind of work. Specific commitments, that we've made over the years to the individual are pretty clear. Classes back this up over and over again. When someone comes in here, we make a commitment that they're going to be safe here. They're also going to be welcome to be here as long as they need and want to be here. The third thing is make that commitment that anything is open for discussion. So there are no secrets. We share everything in terms of between ourselves, with those that we work with, and in particular with the individuals. These sort of basic principles have really helped to move the program forward. One of the things that we reach out in terms of with the manual or with the best practices guide is that we, as I said before, we bring in other folks. So today we're so fortunate because we have therapists who come on site. In particular, we have Dr. Bruce Swartz, who is a forensic expert, who's somebody who's great at doing diagnostic work. He's somebody who also does therapy. We have a long-term relationship with him and a couple other therapists. So while the individuals are here to get work experience, employment training, skill building, we try to make sure that it's a complete milieu of support. In addition to that, we make a real effort to work with residential providers, with psychiatrists, with other healthcare providers, because communication and coordination and consistency is vital to what we do. One of the things I want to say is that this program has also reached out across the country, and we were lucky many years ago, about 6 years ago, to be able to connect with Temple University and to do a project with them in the Department of Justice. Just being able to talk to different people in academia, talking to people at the DOJ, working with them over periods of time is a boost to us. And it also opens up the world, because when you're working with this population, you can become very myopic and you can become very much in the basement. And that's something we've never wanted to do. Today, what we're facing is the challenges that everybody's facing nationwide. In the best practices manual, we really get into the reality of the population we're working with and what their histories are, what they've done. And we'll talk about profiles in a couple of minutes. But the thing I want to say is the class has a great reputation. The SES program has been very successful on many different levels. And in particular, we haven't had many incidents in terms of civilians, if you will, people in the community that have gone bad. We've had moments that have been fairly hairy, behavior-wise, but overall, after 24 years, this program is standing in a high level. Lots of compliments, lots of people backing us up. But what I know is tomorrow morning or tonight, something could happen with one of the individuals in the community, and all that, those good feelings are potentially put at risk. So you have to be prepared for not everything going the way that you want it to go. This is covered, as well as the modalities, the treatment supports that we have in place in the best practices manual. Went a little bit over, but that's it. Back to Chris.
So to give a rundown of the current census and the funding agencies that we work with. Currently we have, we're working with the Department of Developmental Services, Department of Mental Health, Mass Rehab Commission, and the Department of Education. This is just simply, from a financial standpoint, this is where our funding comes from. The service delivery is the same for each of these. To give you an idea of what some of these the work we're doing looks like, here's one of the individuals doing the interoffice mail. This is one of our fabric looms. This is a highly coveted job. It takes quite a while to actually put these together. When the agency comes in to put them together, we actually burn through them quicker than they can keep stringing them. So this is a great opportunity. People love doing this job. I'll hand it back over to Catherine.
All right, everybody, it's time for another polling question. And the question is, individuals with ID represent almost 3% of the U.S. population. What percentage is currently represented in prison or jail? All right, guys, back to you.
You can go to your slide 14, which is Program Individual Profiles. Just take a look at that for a second. I'm not going to read line by line. As you can see, there's legal involvement with many of the individuals supported in SES. It comes from all over. When you're involved with the legal system, the individuals, you have to have another layer of expertise. You have to have another level of connection to that system. And so class has done a good job, especially in the last year or two. We have a new mayor in the city of Lawrence. Mayor's been out to see the program. Police chief has been out. But on an ongoing basis, we do have involvement with police. We have involvement with the court system, with the jail system, probation, and also with inpatient units, psychiatric units, both private psychiatric hospitals, but also Hogan Regional Center, which is a state-run facility in Hathorne, Mass., which has a stabilization, evaluation, and transition unit. Unfortunately, some of our individuals at times, because of psychiatric decompensation, because of behavioral presentation, combination, really need a more secure setting than what's provided in their current residences or in class. We don't disconnect from those individuals if they end up in those kind of settings. What we try to do is have ongoing communication, connection with them, but also with their care providers in those settings. This takes time, this takes an effort, and class has really supported this through the years that I've been involved in the program. From a diagnostic perspective, if you go into the next page, 15. We've taken all of our data, looked at it, and the thing I'd say is every DSM diagnosis that's in the book, if we took a tally of every diagnosis for every individual in this program, they probably cover everything in the book. The reality is we have probably, I don't know, half of our population has had 15 or 20 different diagnoses over the years, major mental disorders. The truth is with this is a lot of information, but with 20 diagnoses, 15 diagnoses, it says everything and it says nothing at the same time. Once again, we turn to people who are really good in this area, and I already referenced Dr. Swartz. one of the things that we want before somebody comes to class is we want current profiles, we want good projective testing, we really want to know the psychiatric components, we want to do risk profiles on individuals, we want to be totally prepared from an information perspective, from an updated clinical picture before we engage with the individual. The more information we have, the better. We don't let it bias us. We try to not be prejudiced because of past behaviors, criminal involvement. We have to neutralize that and really make that commitment to the individual that we're working with. We are fortunate in terms of not only Dr. Swartz, but we have other therapists and other folks coming in who specialize. And if you look on this page 15, psychotic disorders, personality disorders, we are working with more and more people in terms of brain injuries. We have to have expertise beyond what we have in-house. And we are fortunate to have partners doing this work. So one of the principles or things I would like to talk about later is just the importance of not being alone when you do this work. You also see in here the issue of, I think SORB is previous page. Sorry, previous page. SORB, Massachusetts, like many states, is after somebody is arrested, convicted, adjudicated for a sexual offending crime, they go in front of the SORB board, which is Sexual Offender Registry Board. And that board levels an individual. And those levels, level 3 is the highest level of caution, and the person who gets a level 3 status is the person who's seen as most likely or the biggest potential to reoffend, to do that behavior. We have to work with the board. We have to make sure that if we're going to site with individuals, the notification of local police and so forth. So it's another area of expertise and work. But in addition to the topic for today, which really is focused on people with sexual offending behaviors, you should know that we also work with people who have significant histories of violence, fire setting, thefts, including grand theft autos, not the game, but the reality. Every sort of crime that you can imagine, the individuals who we're working with across the board have had. What we try to do in terms of the diagnoses and this information is, once again, helps us ground our planning, our staff development and training, and our day-to-day work with the individuals, but we don't get locked down, and we're not going to be held captive to the diagnoses of the individuals. But as you can see, it presents quite a challenge when we're trying to educate the workforce because it's a broad spectrum of diagnoses.
We'll hand it back over to Catherine for the follow-up question.
All right, everyone. Get that next poll question open. Get ready. All right, the question is, an English research study examined 103 sex offenders with developmental disabilities. What percentage did they find had reoffended after 6 years? All right, back over to you guys.
So, Paul's been talking about all the elements of the work that we do and the importance of having really systematic support. One of, if not the most important element of this type of a program is having a very strong team. And this is something that this program has and is vital to the success of the program. We have 13 frontline staff positions, currently half of which have at least an undergraduate degree. We have people that have backgrounds in social work, psychology, criminal justice. This is a very experienced and knowledgeable team, and they have to be due to really what Paul's been talking about, the wide variety and spectrum of the individuals that we support, and also the fairly substantial amount of risk that working with these people carries. In addition to those 13 positions, we also have a program case coordinator who's really the contact person for all external stakeholders, family members of the individuals, service coordinators, the various departments that we work with, to make sure the continuity and to maintain that treatment integrity. We have to stay in constant communication with external stakeholders. We also have a behavior specialist who really oversees the clinical programs, whether they are restrictive practices, behavior plans, working with the staff on some interventions that might be necessary or approaches that will assist that person in really improving their quality of life. There's a program manager that really oversees the day-to-day operations of the program in terms of helping the staff with what they need, as well as making sure that the vocational opportunities are there and are available and appropriate for that day and for those people. And then there's the program director who oversees the entirety of the program, and you know, as an unbiased person, that person's really good at their job. We also work really closely with the production coordinator as well as the employment manager through the employment department of the agency. They're really responsible for the acquisition and the oversight of employment contracts. It's really vital that we're proactive in when identifying these jobs to make sure that they're not only going to be beneficial from a financial standpoint from the individuals, that they're going to make some money out of it, but it's also safe, appropriate, and it's something that we can really help the individuals to build off of with that. So this is a really, these key elements of all of these positions, it's a large team and it's necessary. There has to be very close coordination of having all of these parts working hand in hand, or else it doesn't work. So that's a really vital piece to that. You want to speak to any of that?
I think that we found over the years that staffing above everything is what's so critical. And I think that we're fortunate now that of the population, the staff that we have, like Chris said, we have at least 4 or 5 people who've been here 5 years, a couple people who've been here 10 years. That knowledge base, that experience for new people coming in, we can't, you can't buy that. Trying to keep those teams together is difficult because I don't know about elsewhere in the country, but certainly here, we're always struggling in terms of trying to make sure that we're getting employees, paying them at a level that's commensurate with what the responsibilities are. What I like now is that we have a real mix of folks, people, some young people, men, women. It really is a team, works as a team, and many of the individuals see this, and they themselves model some of the behavior from the staff on that level.
Okay. Bounce it back to Catherine.
All right, it's time for the last polling question. So if you've answered the first 3, make sure to get in on this one too. And the question is, what percentage of all reported sexual offenses are committed by individuals with developmental disabilities?
Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone. Back to you guys.
Thank you. So again, to elaborate on some of the points that Paul has brought up, the funding is an issue in terms of one of the challenges within this population of people that we support is that there are a high level of absenteeism due to some of the various issues that the people that we support struggle with. One of the questions we got from someone was that, do we hold spots for people that are incarcerated or hospitalized? that's an issue that we do that. Paul brought that up earlier about the Hogan Stabilization Unit. We really try to work hand in hand with them that if someone requires that level of need, is that we try to make ourselves available as being that first contact for the person being reintegrated into the program, so that they can have some experience in the community before that they're fully integrated back into their residence. That's an important piece. With the funding, if they're not here, we're not paid for that person's spot that day. However, we are responsible to show up and have a full staffing prepared to have everyone here on a daily basis. So again, as Paul really mentioned, it's important to have financial support and to have some money at your disposal, because this is not a cheap program to run, and it's also we need to be here, all hands on deck every day, with the expectation that everyone will show up. With the staffing, we have a 1-to-4 staffing ratio within the program. In terms of the level of need, it's certainly a high level compared to other agencies working with this population of folks, but we're always working on having to have all hands on deck when there's critical incidents. There's certainly those 4 positions from the manager, the director, behavior specialist, the case coordination. We're all direct support staff at times. This also all ties into the sheltered versus community employment. We really try to incorporate both elements of that into our treatment model of therapeutic work. This is something that I think, Paul has been here since the infancy of the program 25 years ago, and this is a cornerstone of how this program is designed, is that therapeutic work is really an element that we take great initiative in making sure that that's something that we continue to do, whether it be sheltered within the house or it's something that someone is working towards doing more of the work like we talked about the mail, working towards going outside to do some landscaping, to get to that off-site work opportunity. These are things that we really want to put into each individual's work plan, individualized for that person's needs. You want to speak to that a little bit more?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. We talk a little bit about the risk reduction. Again, Paul has brought up about the risk of supporting this population of folks. We have multiple ways of mitigating that risk. We have representation at quarterly meetings with state agency providers, as well as risk review meetings. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of what we're doing, what we're seeing from the individuals, and to get some help if we need it, and to make sure that we're all on the same page. We have that daily communication from the case coordination with residential providers, with those agency providers. We have monthly crisis response scenario trainings within our staffing team, where we will pull out of a hat a day, a time, and a situation that might occur, where we might say, okay, it's Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning, everyone go to the rooms that you'll be at that time, and then pull a situation. Frank ran out of the building and got hit by a car. What are we going to do? So we want to have the staff prepared for any and all contingencies so that we're prepared for those situations that might arise. We also, when we have new individuals referred to us, Paul and myself will go interview them and really get a sense of what that person's needs are, if they're an appropriate fit for the program, issues that might be coming up, and really getting a heads up beforehand before they come in so that we can hit the ground running once they enter the program.
Just a couple other things with risk. Everybody knows the risk if you're working with this population around behavior. But there's other risks that present with this population. We've had several people come into this program who are living on the streets. We're homeless. We're resistant to any kind of programming, want to live in residential programs with support. They came into SES, did the work, and over time what we found was that risk of homelessness, relapsing back into alcoholism, drug use, and so forth. If SES could provide a foundation of stability, consistency, predictability, much more likely than to receive other services and other supports. The other risk that we have with our aging population is just the medical involvement. medical, just general aging, but so many of our folks have been on medications for most of their lives that this really puts them at risk as they get there up in years. So we look across the board, work very closely with the funding agencies about trying to reduce the risk, first recognize it, but then reduce it. But it is a primary focus.
So, in talking about managing behaviors versus supporting and treating the whole person, this is something that we take very seriously as well. We want to be able to, one of the things that I think for myself as I see as a large component of the work that we do in this program is helping people be identified for who they are and not their behavior. Is that we're really looking at maximizing people's skill sets while minimizing those risk factors and those behaviors that can be unsafe and really socially maladaptive, is that we want to be able to provide them with opportunities to succeed. And it really has to be unique and individualized for each person in the program. We certainly have a clinical approach. Everything has that bend to it within the program, but we really want to look at each person coming into the program having an individualized, targeted success. You know, Paul's going to really delve into a case study of an individual that was in the program for many years, and it really typifies the unique successes that this program can produce. This isn't something that we have a generic, we're going to have everyone go work at that, you know, the technology firm in 5 years. It has to be unique to each person. It has to be something that we really look at on an individualized basis. So,
just to add on to that, while we do an awful lot of behavioral work and have lots of technologies that we use, and it's mostly, you know, positive behavioral support. It's something that we do every single day, every opportunity that we have. We don't want to get so far into that realm that we don't recognize and we don't address that many of the behaviors that we see don't come from a purely attention place. They come as a result of our response to folks' mental health status. And this is always a discussion point about how do we blend supports. And I think the class has done a really good job of this. There's other programs in Massachusetts across the country that I visited, consulted to with, and this is something I always encourage is try not to just get so caught up with the behaviors that you're not looking at the whole person. And once again, when we were talking about best practices, person as a whole is at the center of the best practices. Perfect example or good example of someone who's benefited from the program was actually someone that I've known for a very long time before I even started to work with class. His name is Peter, and I thought I met him in 1980. And when I was working at Danvers State Hospital, psychiatric hospital, secure hospital, I was working in forensics at the time. That was my job for about a 5-year period of time, evaluating, working with the inpatient units, transferring people to other facilities if they were thought to be too homicidal or suicidal to be treated there. And Peter I met on the unit. And when I first walked onto the ward, I saw him sitting in a corner, and he had a blanket up over his head. I could see his glasses and his eyes. He tucked his legs up underneath him. That blanket was as tight as it could be. And as I got closer to him to introduce myself, I could see that that wasn't sort of well received, so I gave him plenty of room, went and asked people about him, looked at his history, tried to engage with him, eventually made some contact with him. He allowed me to get physically closer, not a lot of talking, sat with him for a long, long period of time. So one day I was talking to him and I said to him, and this is about a year into it, and I said, you know, I just met you a year ago, and he looked at me straight in the eye, and it was one of the few times that he made eye contact. He said, no, you met me 3 years ago. And I said, well, what do you mean I met you 3 years ago? No, I met you on the unit. And he said, no, you came up to Haverhill. I was living in a residential program. You came in, you saw me, and then 2 weeks later I ended up in the state hospital. In fact, I had gone out to his program, but I had consulted on how to put a system in place to work with the individual in the program. And in that short period of time, Peter had some very significant behaviors in the community, including a fire setting incident. that landed him in the state hospital. His background is tragic from the perspective of a social background. Smart guy, incredibly smart, but very, very damaged, and probably suffers from schizophrenia, paranoid, as much as anybody I've ever worked in my career. Just really very afraid of the world. Not only does he have an intellectual disability, and he has schizophrenia, but he also did damage to his brain when he was about 14 years old, where he did about 20 hits of acid at the same time. This guy just wanted to stay in that house, in the hospital, didn't want to talk about going to community, didn't want to talk about coming to class. And it took a couple years of encouragement, and we were fortunate to be able to get a residence that was within view of the state hospital. Took his rocking chair, preferred rocking chair down in the house, and he could look out of the window and he could see the hospital, and that gave him a sense of connectedness and safety. He agreed to come to class, and for about another year, he just sort of boycotted me. He wouldn't talk to me. He was angry about something, wasn't sure what it was. He wouldn't even go into his home base room. But SES, which at the time was called Behavioral Day Activity Program, we had a long corridor with a water cooler at one end. The other end there was a bathroom, and we decided as staff, if he didn't want to come into the room, but he would come to the program every day, that was fine. And we would compliment him on him, and we'd greet him every single day. Eventually, Peter came into the room. Took another year for him to actually be doing work. And what we found was he wasn't great at bench work and didn't like bench work. He would have been one of the last people I would have thought we could have placed in community with a job coach. And staff convinced me. And they said whenever he's gone out in the community, to go pick up supplies, to help staff, he actually did very, very well. So at the time we had a site and we had a job coach at local Sears Automotive Center, and Peter went there. They gave him a blue uniform with his name on the front. He put the uniform on like a jumpsuit, and I think it just gave him a layer of protectiveness. He did great in that job. His job was to clean up and to take the tires out. His job coach he became very, very close with, and had great success in that setting. He'd come back to class, and when he was in that environment here, which can be high stimulus, he retreated into himself. Peter, over the next 12 years, 13 years, gradually started to say to us he wanted to be back at SES proper, back in Lawrence. Started to withdraw in terms of going out to sites. He talked about, he was aging, he was getting older, he was ready to retire. And about a year and a half ago, started to have those conversations with him. His behavior in terms of frequency and dangerousness, if you will, community behavior, was very, very low. And he went to class to see what existed in the rest of the building and decided that he wanted to go into the Rehabilitation Program. And about 3 months, 4 months into the program, I had some pictures sent to me, and Peter was at a local apple orchard, picking apples, being with a group of people, and had the biggest smile on his face. I know it may sound not trite, but just a feel-good story. But having met the guy in 1978, and to see what he's gone through, the difficulty that he experienced, the loss, the pain because of his illness, he survived first, and people around him, both residentially and certainly here, gave him that opportunity to have a different type of life. So I'm proud of the work that we've all done with him. He's a wonderful man. He still has that ability to, if he hasn't had his coffee at the right time, I'm the worst person on the face of the earth. 10 minutes later, I can be, the best friend. So he can swing back and forth. And there's times when his illness does really knock him back a few days, a few weeks, but no hospitalizations. And he is somebody who is thankful and remembers people's names to this day. And we'll talk the history of SES and knows more detail than I can recall. So he really is a success story when this wasn't we didn't see this coming. I'm just going to tell you that. So no matter who you're working with in the future, if you're involved with this population, hold out hope, encourage them as individuals to identify their goals and give them all the support that you can, because they will benefit from it.
So that's our presentation. Catherine, you want to take over for the next slide?
Yes. Thank you guys so much for a great presentation, and very cool to end on that high note about Peter. I have a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll get to some questions. So you guys start putting your questions in the chat box and in the Q&A section. Our webinar next month is not going to be on Thanksgiving. It's not the last Thursday of the month. It'll be on November 20th. And Laura Usher from NAMI will come and talk to us about crisis intervention teams. So that's more on the law enforcement side of things, and she's going to tell us about some of the work she's been doing over there. You should all sign up to receive email alerts and use our information referral and technical assistance service. So if you know of anybody with a disability who also has a criminal justice issue, check out our website and fill out an INR form, and we'll see what we can do to help. And now we are going to take some questions here. So the first question is from Barb Byers, asking about your staff ratio on average for this program.
So our staffing ratio is a 1-to-4 for the program. When we're in the community, it's at least 1-to-4, but we also will utilize at times if someone is going through a difficult time, if someone is presenting to have a difficulty in transitioning into the program, we will increase that ratio for that room. So we do have flexibility with that, but we do maintain a core 1-to-4 ratio in the program and when community employment.
There is a continuum between those different home bases, and there's some individuals who are at that level where they're really working the full day, low frequency of behavior. Their ratio may be a 1-to-6. There are times when, because we're using folks in terms of those individuals who might be in a crisis for that day, as Chris was talking about, there's sometimes when we're doing things in the community where people will have a 1-to-1 because they're going out to see the work site for the first time. So Chris and his staff, in terms of using the resources they have, are very skilled. We talk about this all the time. It's a good staff ratio. In terms of the population as a whole, is it the best? It's not. But the reality is we have what we have, and it is a good ratio at this point.
Thank you. This next comment is from Margaret Newberry-Jones, and she says, your case study is wonderful, but it also shows this work needs to be long-term, and we can't just put Band-Aids on people and assume they will do fine when we withdraw the supports after they stabilize. And so I guess the question related to her comment is, you guys talked some about political funding and support. Do you have suggestions for how to start building a credible program that, you know, the community is going to feel comfortable with? Where do you start?
The first place to start, and what we always look for, is parents, relatives, people who have an investment. Chris mentioned stakeholders before. When we do our intakes, when we're trying to work, we try to connect with anyone who's been involved in a meaningful way, in a positive way, with individuals been referred, not only to get information and to coordinate what we're doing and to share information, but to try to use them to support our efforts. The place that we started in terms of SES really came out of the state legislature here. There were many individuals with intellectual disabilities who were at the old Danvers State Hospital. They were being systematically sort of abused in that setting. That's how I got involved on the North Shore working in this area. And there was a project to move 120 individuals out of that state hospital. And one of the resulting programs was the SES program and a Turning Point program, which is out of Newburyport, Mass. Residential program started at the same time. So there was a legislative push for this, and the money came from both DDS, Department of Developmental Services, but also from DMH, the Department of Mental Health. You got to go where the people are in your corner, but you also have to go to the place where people have an invested interest in improving situations. So that's where the politics come in. Now, it didn't hurt that we did a lot of reaching out to state legislators, talking with them, demonstrating in terms of what we could do to address this issue.
Great. All right, let's see. What's our next question? So if there is a problem, I know Chris mentioned an example of somebody, breaking free and running out into traffic. What's your prevention strategy for preventing those kinds of things from happening more than once or from happening again?
Well, as a program model, all the staff have walkie-talkies, so we're all in constant communication, and we also have alarms on all the doors, so we will know if someone has exited the building. If someone has a history of that, we will certainly, with the behavior specialist, with the team, have Paul involved. We will develop strategies to intervene in those situations, and again, they're individualized. We might have someone who is trying to exit the program because they're frustrated that something happened at home. It's all really dependent on not just the behavior, but where the behavior is stemming from. And we do that. Those are situations that we really try to address on an individualized basis.
We have one man who came to us who is early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, who really never has been successful in any kind of programming. What his history is he just leaves any kind of service. And when he leaves, he would get into drugs and alcohol and show up 2 or 3 days later. When we first met with him, we talked to him about his life, and that it had been a very unstable life, growing up, his teen years. And talked to him, and I asked him the question, I said, are you tired? Are you tired of living this life where you're half on the street, you're half in services, you're always at risk? And we asked for a commitment. We said, if you're going to come into this program, we will help you, but we have to work on this issue because he is someone who can hurt himself or hurt others when he is in the community. So it was a conversation and then followed by doing a behavioral contract with him. It's his contract. We try not to put hands on folks, to do restraints, physical restraints. If someone is presenting in terms of just leaving the building, if we see them as being at imminent risk to themselves or others, we're obligated to do what we can to stop them. If we do need to call the police, we will call the police. But we're very hesitant to do this because many of the folks have had involvement with the police hasn't gone all that well. Tough question.
Sorry about that. That was a tough one. So here's another one from Barb Byers. Do you ever have people court-ordered to your program? Oh, I think we muted you guys. There we go. We should be able to hear you now.
What was the question again?
Do you ever have people court-ordered to your program?
We in Massachusetts, individuals with intellectual disabilities and under their regulations, they cannot be committed to services. We do have individuals who are on pretrial probation, or they've gone through, been adjudicated, and they're on probation after they've either served time or come out. So that, yes, they are committed, they're committed as part of their condition of probation that they attend class, they go to SES, and they're in a residential setting and do they have a individual service plan in Massachusetts, goal-centered, person-centered goals. That's written right into that plan. They know what's going to how we're going to respond to this. But yeah, this is a challenge. Working with the courts is critical. Just let me throw out there, I don't know people's experience with this, but the police are not the enemy. The judges aren't the enemy. Even the jails aren't the enemy. Probation officers. There's good people and bad people in all those systems, and some of the people who have been the greatest help to us are very committed probation officers. And if you, my research are looking into this, collaborating with probation officers with somebody coming out of a jail setting in particular for a period of a year and a half, a year to a year and a half, it is tremendous. It doesn't set us up as being the authority figures It reinforces our role as facilitating the individual's treatment plan, ensuring their goals are met. So it can be a real help with some of the folks that we work with.
And just to use an example of that situation, the individual that Paul was discussing who had not done well in other programs and who continued to leave programs, we had that issue when he arrived in our program. He was under pretrial probationary conditions, and he has, that worked out in a way for him where he's currently an off-site employment person within our program and does not have that issue, has not had that issue for almost 8 months. So this is something that, if handled correctly, if you find the right people in those positions, it can be to a great benefit for that person to move forward.
And he's extremely proud of what he's done.
Yes.
and relaxed and happy. People don't talk about being happy. His sense of humor, which we never saw at the beginning, has really come out, and he's just enjoying life in a different way, in a much more healthy way.
That's great. All right, it looks like we've got time for probably one more question. So this is kind of more of just an open-ended one for you guys to wrap things up. What are some of the barriers you've faced in the community as you're trying to get this program up and running, and then how have you gotten around them?
It's not only, it starts with really the agency, and Bob Harris, who's the executive director of class, from the very beginning when I first started working with class, meeting with his board, talking to his board, because the board is reflective of the community at large. Some of the board members were parents, some of the board members were bankers, lawyers, across. We had to do a lot of education. We had to work with them. We had to talk to the police when we got into the SORB sort of era. You know, those gentlemen who are leveled, they're on cable TV in Lawrence on an hourly basis. It's rolling, and their pictures are up there, their crimes are up there. We do as much education as we can with the community at large. But what's most important is we go not out of our way. We make every effort possible never to have an individual in a situation where they're unmonitored. We have staff of people all the time, and like Chris said, either walkie-talkies or phones. Because the last thing for the community that we want is for anybody to be hurt in any way. The last thing we want for the individuals that we support is for them to reoffend and end up back in jail, because most of these folks, if they reoffend, may never come out of those settings again. Grassroots.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for presenting today and for the great work that you're doing. You guys are a rarity around the country, and hopefully a flagship program, and people are hearing about you, right? So we'll start looking for other programs around the country. No pressure to all the attendees today. Do you guys have anything else that you'd like to share before we get going?
No, thank you very much, Ken.
I do. Hold on a second. If you're going to do this work, you got to, I already mentioned this in other areas. You've got to have humor, but that humor can't go so far into the dark side. You have to have a support system. If you really look at the people that we're working with in their own histories and how they were abused, let alone what they did to other people or allegedly did to other people, this work is hard. How you go home at night, how you relax, how you have a family and not be disturbed by nightmares and you know, having your own children and thinking in that way. We have to support each other. You have to make sure that you have good supervision in place. And the thing that you know, I'm fortunate enough because I'm self-employed, I take good vacations. Doesn't mean I go all over the world, but you have to have breaks in this work, and you have to teach yourself how to do that, how to put it down, to leave it, so that you can be renewed when you come back in the next time to do this work. So humor, support from others, and long-term commitment.
All right, well, thank you. That's wonderful advice, and I'm sure more than just me needed to hear that. So thank you for sharing and for the work that you've done. And for everyone listening, we're going to get going today, and we'll let you know who won the drawing and when the recorded webinar is up. And we'll see you guys on November 20th. So have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.